morning, everyone, once again, and welcome to side event for today, Girls Back to School campaign. Today, we are going to be discussing the topic on ensuring girls' education COVID-19. That is for the Africa Girls Back to School campaign. So I have with me here Kate Kiama. I have with me Linda from Uganda. Kate is from Kenya. And I also have with me Liano, who is from Cameroon. So today we are going to be discussing this topic. And before we start the conversation, I would like to give a brief introduction about the Africa Girls Back to School campaign and what we have been doing so far. We know that the estimated number of girls specifically who are represented and are likely not to return back to school is over 1 million. And that was before the COVID pandemic. And we fear that even during this pandemic and after, a lot of girls will not be returning to school. So a lot of coalitions has been put in place to ensure girls is protected and that girls have equal access to education as much as boys does, so that there is no inequality. And so because of this, we had a global education coalition which was launched by UNESCO, for which all Africa students began this campaign. And we were doing so in partnership with the 100 Million campaign, which is also a coalition that ensures that girls are given free, safe education. So over the past few months, we have been giving training to our coordinators. We have coordinators in we have been giving them the requisite technical support they would need to start grassroots mobilization and grassroots campaigns. So today I have with me some of the few coordinators who are doing tremendously well with the campaign. And so before we go into the issues, I'd want us to watch some few pictures on what it is that they have done so far about the campaign. So we can go just a minute and then we'll show the slides. Now, while we wait for the slides to be shown, the Gender Flagship Project, which is the Africa Girls Back to School campaign, which is a flagship program, like I said, of the Global Education Coalition, we have been demanding government for these following items. We have been demanding from government to ensure that sufficient emergency healthcare services are provided, especially for young girls and then for the vulnerable in our society. We are also demanding from government to provide logistical educational support for the vulnerable in our society, as there has been a disruption in education system as we see across the world. And so the educational support that some governments have been providing so far as we demanded internet services, as a lot of institutions switched from the traditional way of teaching to an online learning. It became a difficulty for a lot of people because of lack of internet in some remote areas in some of the African countries. And so one of the things we demanded as a coalition, as a campaign from the government, was to ensure that they provide logistical educational support if they are going to maintain their online learning. Another demand we placed on government was also to propose scholarships for girls where they were applicable. And another demand again we placed on government was to guarantee reliable, especially when we went into lockdown. We found out that students, especially those who were outside of their home countries, were finding it difficult to sustain themselves. This is because as the lockdown was going on, there were a lot of parents who were not working, and so they were finding it hard to send incentives to their wards who were outside of their home country. And so some of the demands that students as these ones, and also for students who were thrown out of their um, hostels because of students who had accommodation issues, because of the lockdown, because of the pandemic, and also because of lack of financial support. So lastly, we also place demand on government to ensure that adequate wash, that is water, sanitation, healthcare, waste management systems facilities. Now, during the course of the year, as we were moving on into the mid-year, getting closer to the later part of the year, where a lot of government felt that it was a little safe for people to return back to school, it was necessary that certain measures were put in place, protocols were observed so that students are not, students do not contract the disease because they have to return back to school. And so all protocols are observed in school, and that meant that they were provided the necessary equipment, the necessary materials they would need to protect themselves. Some government offered PPEs to students, free PPEs to students. Some also ensure that there are sanitizers and wash stands in their school so that students um, get to wash their hands, get to protect themselves from the disease. So we have joined here to earlier to look at the issues, the campaign. I mean, look at issues concerning girls' education, the state of girls' education um, during the pandemic and then after the pandemic. So we will show you the amazing work our coordinators have been doing so far in a few minutes. Okay, so while we are waiting for the technical team, perhaps my guest for today's panel would want to introduce themselves briefly. Okay, so here we are showing you the amazing work. These are pictures from different countries who have been embarking seriously on the campaign to ensure that they make impact in the communities they find themselves. And sending girls back to school to see their amazing works. These are from Uganda, and you can see girls, other girls. It says education empower girls to realize their full potentials. And these are some of the messages colleagues in Uganda. This is also the campaign goes on. We can see Linda in this picture. Linda doing amazing works. This is campaign from Cameroon. So thank you very much, technical team. This is also a message from Cameroon. So we'll move on to the next session, and I would like to invite Linda. Linda is the lead coordinator for the Ugandan team. And like we saw from the pictures that were shown, they have been doing tremendously well with their campaign. They have been visiting government institutions to tell them about their campaign. They have been going to door to door. They have been having door to door interactions with parents in communities, religious leaders in their various communities. We are pleased to have Linda with us online. So Linda, if you can hear me, you might want to introduce yourself to our participants online, and you give them introduction of what it is that you are doing in Uganda, and then we delve into the issues.
I'm glad because and then the lead campaign coordinator.
Your network is a bit unstable, so if you'd want to position yourself a little bit for us so that we can hear what you're saying clearly.
Okay, I think this is better.
Yes, this is better. We can hear you. Please go ahead.
Okay, yeah. Listener, the lead campaign coordinator, raising teenagers in school. We are running and a district characterized by high child marriages, high teenage pregnancies, child labor, and high school dropouts. Can you hear me, Hilda?
Yes, we can hear you. It's just a little unstable,
Perfect.
but we can hear you.
Okay. So at the start of this year in March, the government of Uganda closed schools due to COVID-19 and recently opened schools in October to students in higher learning institutions. Can you hear me?
Yes, but your network today is a little unstable. So while you would want to reposition yourself, I'd want to move on to Kate for Kate to introduce herself, and then I'll come back to you. Okay, so Kate is also the lead coordinator for the Kenyan team, and the Kenyans has also been doing amazing works across their regions in the country. So would want to invite Kate to give us a brief introduction about their campaign and what they've done so far before we go into the issues into detail. So Kate, over to you.
Thank you, Hilda. My name is Kate Kema. I work at support solutions to educate girls and then build their capacities, especially around their communities. And I'm really excited to be part of this campaign. Linda is one of our very close allies, and we're always texting each other back and forth to see whether strategies can work. And I hope we'll be able to hear from her the amazing work that they're doing. So in Kenya, we currently have 13 are present in 16 counties out of the 47 counties in our country, which is a good enough representation, but we know there's so much more, and there's so many more underserved girls we're not able to reach just because of the reach. But most of the counties that we're currently working in have challenges, as Linda had alluded to before she dropped off, especially in regards to FGM, early child marriage, poverty, which of course compound all the issues that girls are facing. So from October till today, through the concerted efforts of all the 12 coordinating ambassadors, we're happy to share that we've been able to directly through mentorship or through different interventions. Some of our coordinating ambassadors have been able to do in-person outreach, just making sure that they're speaking to girls and finding out what are their anxieties. A couple of our coordinators are also having lots of good strides in terms of sharing care packages with girls, especially in regards to sanitary wear, making sure that some of the challenges that we know will expose girls to transactional sex are being mitigated at the onset. We've had a lot of buy-in from governments, especially on the county level. Most of our coordinating ambassadors have been able to have audience with county officials who are truly excited and delighted to walk this journey and make sure we're able to keep track of where the girls are. A couple of challenges we're facing, obviously, is regards to data. Cutting issue, but we don't have relevant data and accurate data, which of course has been problematic in terms of truly being able to assess how many girls were out of school vis-a-vis how many girls have gotten pregnant. So without the data, we really, it's a bit difficult to be able to really have better clarity on where we should put our concerted efforts towards. And we do know the lack of data will cause other ripple effects as well, because then we're not truly sure how many girls are already out of school. I remember, Hilda, you are alluding to the fact that UNESCO in 2016 already mentioned that 50. I'm not too sure whether each of us knows what that percentile looks like in our own countries. And I think that's really important for us to know, so that then, even as we're making sure girls return back to school, we're also addressing the girls who were probably not in school before the COVID pandemic. So data is one of the biggest challenges. The second challenge we're struggling a bit with is funding. All of our coordinators are doing this on a pro bono basis, and some of the challenges and the plights that you'll meet girls with really belabor you to want to give more, to do more. And we do know that the lack of funds sometimes is limiting our reach. Meet a girl who is not able to access digital school because she doesn't have access to credit or data. It behooves you as a human to want to give, but then if you give one and then you meet 5,000 other girls and you have limited resources, small things like that, and the ethics around how do you choose the most vulnerable. And so without funding, we do know it's important that we're still doing something. And I think that's one of the best things young people have showed, that funding might not be the only problem. You can be able to find creative ways to address challenges, but we know that's a limiting factor in terms of especially outreach and some of the very hard to reach areas that girls are likely to face. And then lastly is the compounded priorities and difficulties that girls are facing. Girls are not homogeneous. Girls have several problems that they're going through. And as we entered this campaign, everyone was really excited to make sure girls get back to school. But you quickly realize that some girls have gone through really grave atrocities during this period of being at home, that you have to make sure that their psychosocial support is dealt with. There's some girls who have been abused and as a result have gotten pregnant. So as much as we are thinking about, yes, making sure as we have 100% transition back to school, there's so many other underlying problems that we feel we might not have the capacity to do, or we don't have necessarily the support structure. And I think it's really important for us to have really coordinated efforts to make sure that both teachers, parents, guardians, local chiefs address all of these compounded problems, so that when girls show up in school, they're showing up with all of their holistic needs are catered to. And finally, I think the last one that I really must buttress, I think not enough conversations are happening about how to onboard girls back to school. Challenges, as you've mentioned, Hilda, with PPE. A small thing like a mask might, again, really limit the number of girls who will go back to school, because if governments pass off that cost back to parents, and parents already are having a lot of economic strain, parents will not feel comfortable sending their daughters to school. Girls will not feel comfortable. The school will not agree. So it's really important to really have those conversations of who bears the cost of PPE, and to make sure that the education sector is being funded in addition to health. Limit the number of girls who will be able to show up even when some form of normalcy resumes. So thank you for your time, and we're available for questions.
Thank you very much, Kate. You have said a lot, and I think that all the things that you said were very necessary. We need to just not focus on the fact that we need to get girls back to school, but we also need to ensure that their holistic needs are catered for as well. I think that is very important, because they can go back to school, but they might not have the concentration to focus on their education, because a lot of problems that underlying problems that are still there. So thank you, Kate. And I would want to switch back to Linda, if Linda can hear me. Hi, Linda. Linda, I think your microphone is off, so you can unmute yourself and then you speak.
Hi, Hilda. Is
Hi.
that okay?
Yes, that is very much okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you. Please speak.
Okay, I was saying, my name is Linda Eunice, and I'm the lead campaign coordinator for the Girls Back to School campaign in Uganda. I work with Rising Teenagers Uganda, an NGO fighting to end child marriages in Uganda as a way of keeping girls in school. We are implementing the Girls Back to School campaign in Kamuli District, a district located in the eastern part of Uganda, characterized by high child marriages, teenage pregnancies, child labor, and high school dropout. At the start of this year, the government closed schools due to COVID-19, and recently opened them in October to girls and students in Kandan classes. However, so many girls have not been able to resume school due to lack of money, due to the effects of the negative effects of the COVID-19 on household incomes. And recently the government accepted girls that are pregnant to resume school. However, many of them have not been able to return to school due to stigma from parents, due to stigma from teachers and peers. And we have the girls campaign, the Girls Back to School campaign has been ensuring that we advocate for the retention of these girls in school that are pregnant, to ensure that they continue learning regardless of whether they're pregnant or not. Some of our achievements have been supporting 400 girls and empowering them with information on girls' education, the different schools we've been to. We've been able to design messages and disseminate these in the communities to over 100 families. The campaign has been able to reach out to different stakeholders, the district. We've sent an MOU with the district of Kamuli. We've been working with religious leaders, the media, parents, during our one-on-ones. I know you mentioned about it earlier, because we want everybody to have this information, that it is important to educate the girl child. We went to a family one time, and the gentleman told us, I didn't go to school, my wife didn't go to school, my mother and dad didn't go to school, but we survived. Now to him, that's the environment he has grown in. He has not seen beyond that. And he was telling us, why should I educate my girl child, you know? But we went ahead to educate him about the importance of educating the girl child and in the community, and also the due to education. So these are also reaching out to the communities and just empowering them with information. we've empowered girls to speak up, which is very, very important for action, demanding for change. And she has been our leaders reach out to these girls. Recently, the Speaker of Parliament went to Kamala and provided over 6,000 sanitary pads, you know? So that is really, really empowering, and I attribute that to our Girls Back to School campaign. Just like Kate mentioned, have been as well data. We don't know how many girls in the different schools have gotten pregnant, because the schools don't even follow up. They don't know how many of their girls are actually pregnant and why they didn't even resume school. So that has been a challenge. The other has been financing, limited finances to reach out to very many communities. We understand this campaign is supposed to reach out to as many communities as possible. Many people need to hear this message about taking our girls to school, but there's been limited funding, and it would be really, really important to support where we can and ensure that we reach as many people as possible, the girls and the parents and the different stakeholders. And then the other has been the negative attitudes towards girls' education at family level, community level, even at district level, which has really caused resistance in the communities. So we need to continue empowering communities with the information until we see that attitudes are actually changing, until they appreciate girls' education. But most importantly, and one of the achievements is that we formed men and boys support groups. We understand that it's the boys that are sexually harassing our girls, and we needed them on board. You know, they are our champions in the communities. They're raising awareness about the importance of girls' education in their communities, which is really empowering. So those have been some of our tremendous achievements. And I have a call to action to the government to increase funding for girls' education, and as well to meaningfully engage girls in designing solutions, in implementing these solutions, and in participating in decision-making processes. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Linda. You have said a lot, and I agree with it. It looks like funding is quite a problem that cuts across a lot of African continents when it comes to education, specifically girls' education. And so we'll continue to press our government to increase the 5% increase in spending on education, so that girls particularly would have a lot of would have the opportunity to access free education, quality education, and good education. So I have Liano also online. Liano has been working from Cameroon, and he has been doing quite an amazing job as well from Cameroon. Can hear me, you'd want to introduce yourself and then tell us about your campaign.
Hello. Hi, good day, everyone.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning. My name is Liano Takubo Carlos, the Vice President of Council of Africa Youth, and the campaign lead coordinator in Cameroon.
Yeah, please continue.
We started the campaign some time ago in Cameroon, and based on the sociological aspect of Cameroon, we seem to see that Cameroon has been going through so many crises, and girls are the most affected girls. So we decided to launch a campaign and begin the campaign in the Anglophone zone, the two regions, the northwest and southwest of Cameroon, who have been really affected by crisis. And you see, many girls have been left out of schools for the past 4 years. No schools are open over there, and due to the crisis, unwanted pregnancy, high level of prostitution. So we decided to choose the two states, the two regions, to go there and start the campaign. For now, we'll be able to cover up so many schools and encouraging them to go back to school. The school is very important. Some of the internet displaced people, we have been encouraging them so far. And we have also tried to see how, with our low financial movement, with some organizations who have been helping us with items, books, pen, clothes, uniform, and food items to just internet displaced people to make sure they go back to school successfully, despite the crisis. And we have also discussed with the Minister of Human Affairs, higher education, secondary education, and basic education to see how we're going to set up a program for the advancement of girl child education in Cameroon. So for us, for now, we have been working tirelessly. Another major thing, the next plan we're trying to do is target the northern region, because from the northern region, 70% of girls over there, they are not going to school. So we have been trying to see how we strategize our strength and take the next step over there. Hello.
Hello. Yes.
Hello. And some of our challenges have been the challenge of the low financial strength, looking for sponsorship, trying hard to sign partnership with the government also to assist us carry out the campaign. And another thing was the religious leaders and traditional leaders. You get to some communities, they tell you that women, their place is the kitchen, their place is not in school. School is made for boys. And we have been trying to see how we can convince them and say, no, that's not the end. The world is not, we're not living in the 21st century. We're not in olden days where today we need to see the importance of the girl, because the girls of today, they are the mother of the nation. So we've been succeeding of convincing many community like that to see how we can join together. And though it has not been easy, but we're still pushing on and hoping and trusting God that we'll achieve our goal.
Thank you.
So that was it, and thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Liano. It looks like there is a common problem that is running through all these campaigns, and it's the fact that there are some communities that still think that a woman's place is not supposed to be in a classroom, but in a kitchen or in doing handwork. So I'd like us to discuss this. Think this is the case. Liano mentioned that for some people, they said that, I mean, that is what they have been living with. So for them, it's the norm. It's normal to see a girl not going to school, and for the fact that they are surviving is enough for them. But if we want to penetrate and break through their mentality with the message that we are trying to cut across, Kate, let me ask you, how can we break through their mentality to the importance of education, specifically in our generation? How can we do this and get the message to them?
I see Liano's hand up, and I'll be very brief. I think for me, I just want to piggyback on something that Linda mentioned. I think it's really important to design solutions, not only with girls, but with the community for better buy-in. The perception of why, definitely there are some communities even within Kenya where it's really hard to try and change. And this is based on how people were socialized. So we have a lot of gender norms and gender stereotypes over what we think girls and women can do versus what boys and men can do. So for us to be able to change that socialization processes, it's really difficult when an outsider comes into a community and now says, you have to take girls to school. You have to be able to design solutions with the community. And I think that's usually the biggest, like when you think about the challenge, I think Africa has really fantastic policies and laws hindering or discriminating the practice. Yet on the ground, as I mentioned, we have 15 out of the 20 highest rates of child marriage happening in this country. And you know, FGM is a precursor to early and forced child marriage. And this is usually because it's outsiders. And when I mean outsiders, it's maybe I'm in Kenya, but I'm going to Linda's community in Uganda. I'm an outsider to that community, and I'm saying you have to do X and Y. For us to have meaningful and sustainable changes and solutions, you have to design programs with the folks on the ground, the locals. And I think that's how we're able to change. Linda did mention something that I completely echo, especially for girls. It's really important to program the solutions with them at the table, because as I mentioned, if a girl has unfortunately gone through some sexual violence and she's gotten pregnant, there are a lot of stigma and stereotypes that she's carrying. When you tell her go back to school, you know, I'm part of the 100 campaign, UNESCO, ASU. Of course, if we don't articulate and make sure she's comfortable to go back to the school, the place has to be safe enough for her. But we can only know what she needs if we ask her. programmers, we know what might work, but sometimes there's a disconnect because even if you live in the community, a lot of things have changed, or you're not necessarily part and parcel of the day-to-day grind those guys are going through. So it's really important to sit with girls and really ask them, what do you need for you to feel comfortable enough to go back to school? Because some of the girls will say, I want to, say for instance, make sure that I can be able to commute to and from to nurse my child. I need to make sure that my siblings are taken care of. I need to make sure that my siblings have food. There's so many things that are going around people's minds that we don't necessarily know. And I think that's the best way we can be able to design solutions, is not go in the mentality that this rubric will work because it worked in Kilifi and it's not working in Mombasa. It's people's socialization is different, and you have to make sure that you go in with a space, because communities that have designed solutions together as a collective usually have the most sustainable one, because there was buy-in. So that's my offer, that whatever we want to implement, let's make sure we don't go with the mentality.
Okay, absolutely. That's a fantastic point there. Liano, you would want to share your opinion on the subject?
I totally concur with Kate. And another thing we need to do to make sure we solve this problem is the respect of laws. Because when you go around other countries, or most like Cameroon, or let me take the case of Cameroon in particular. In Cameroon, there are laws who says that a girl cannot get married at enough low age years. But you keep on seeing people, any some big official, government official who are getting married under age years, and nothing is being done about it. Nobody is respecting the laws. So we look at it that if they begin from the top by even respecting the law, that they put it on down for us to respect, you see most of those things will be reduced. Even the right to go to school and the rest. And they are the same people who are still known bias. And when you go look at those girls who are raped and the rest, justice are not being done fairly to them. It's because you are maybe the other person have connection with the courts, with the government and the rest. It's still like it has the whole power to go on and rape girls without any justice being done. And those girls that become cheapless. They don't have anywhere to, so they don't have anywhere to, they don't have anybody to talk to. They became shy to society. So this is one of the key things they need to do: respect justice, give a fair justice.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Liano. Linda, I would want to pose this question to you. What has been the response of your community to your campaign?
Okay, of course, we've had positive reception. However, there are people that are still resistant. I mean, like I shared an example earlier with you, that there are people who still don't value in educating the girl child, but we are empowering these people with information, disseminated information in their local languages, messages they understand, and then also tapping into, like I said, the existing structures to reach out to them about the importance of educating the girl child. So yes, we have people that are really receptive to the message and the campaign, the parents, the men, the girls themselves, but of course there are those few that still don't deserve to be in school, so yes.
Okay, so I would want to pose this question again, and anybody at all from our speakers can answer. What actions have you been demanding from authorities to enable girls to return to school safely?
I'm happy to attempt. One of the things we're really calling governments to do is to completely remove all barriers that hinder girls from accessing education. I'm not sure if we're all familiar policies and practice that hinder especially pregnant girls from re-entering back into school. And I think now more than ever is really important for us to do away with these archaic laws, because then one of the biggest effects of COVID has been, we've seen a really high increase in not only gender and sexual-based violence, but also teenage pregnancy and other harmful practices. And so if we don't address this, the chances of girls going back to school will be really hindered. The ECOWAS decision, I think after 2014 during the Ebola outbreak, and this decision was passed 2 years ago, finally held asked Sierra Leone government to make sure that they change their policies to make sure that nursing mothers and pregnant girls re-enter school. One of the things we're calling for governments is to make sure that they use this as persuasive precedents to make sure that girls are not held, they're not, the challenges of them re-entering school is not addressed. The second thing that we are calling our governments to do is also to recognize the digital divide and the inequalities that have really been really expounded during this COVID-19 pandemic, and to make sure that when girls re-enter school, we take cognizance that most of them have not had any form of alternative pathways to education during the 9 months, and it's really important to make sure that the education system has equity and is equal, and to make sure that we recognize that not everyone was having Zoom school during the 9 months. And then lastly, we're calling for the government to make sure that PPEs are costs that are not going to be further added to parents, because then we do know the challenge of that could make more girls and more vulnerable and underserved girls are not be able to access school when that happens.
Okay, great. So there's a question I would want to our participants the opportunity to also share their contribution. The question is about the UN 16 days of activism. We know that we are in the weeks for which the weeks on how to end gender-based violence across the world. So I would want to ask 2 questions. One of them will be directed to all of you, and then another one will be directed specifically to Liano, as he is the man amongst our midst. So the question is, what can we do as individuals? We know we have been calling on our government to find remedies to most of the solutions that we have found in our communities. But I would like to know individually, what can we do to ensure that violence against women and girls in particular are reduced so that they can have their peace of mind to get the education that we are all fighting for? Individually, what can we do? Yeah, so that is the to ask, which is targeted to Liano, is the role men can play in fighting against gender-based violence. The role men can play in fighting against gender-based violence. So the first question anybody at all can attempt to answer, which is what can we do as individuals to ensure that gender-based violence against women and girls are reduced in our communities, in our countries, in our continent? I mean, in Africa, we are talking about the African context. So what can we do as individuals?
I'm happy to speak, Hilda. Is that okay?
That is okay. Please carry on.
I think we have the best laws in Africa, but they're not really without and women and just freely. I wish we had strict laws and enforced these laws and punished the perpetrators. Perhaps we would have reduced cases of violence against women. But then also, for me, I think continued empowerment of women to say no, to speak up for themselves as well and say no. That's why some women are not empowered to speak up, and that's why they tolerate domestic violence sometimes in homes. If we empower women, if we empower girls to speak up and say no, and mean their no, maybe as well. But I strongly believe that we need to enforce the law. We need to punish the perpetrators of sexual violence. We need to punish the perpetrators of domestic violence. Maybe then we would have a reduction in all this violence against women and girls. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now, with regards to the, before Liano speaks, with regards to the laws punishing perpetrators for these acts, I think that the reports for gender-based violence are quite low. I mean, there are men who are also victims of violence, but we are looking at girls and women for today. So I think that I mean, Linda, like you said, we should empower them to speak out. But how do we do this empowering thing? Because the patriarchy system has swallowed us up so much that even when we are being offended, the best thing we know about handling the situation is to just to keep quiet. Sometimes finding someone to talk to is a bit of an issue. How do we solve this problem? How do we get girls and women to come out to speak against gender-based violence and to be bold enough to report perpetrators who commit these acts against them?
Strongly believe that we need to believe, it's difficult to believe people that have been sexually harassed, especially if what the community is doing is just shame them and victimize them, or blaming them for dressing in skimpy clothes. That's why maybe they were raped. But I think we need to encourage people to tell their stories, the authentic stories, and believe in them. And I'm really thankful to the feminist organizations that have come up to just empower women to speak up, regardless of whether they've gone through, just creating those safe spaces for women to speak up and just believing in these women. And it's quite difficult because the men are always, the men and the media or the communities are always shaming women, but we just need to encourage women to speak up. We need to create safe spaces for women to tell their stories and then believe them.
Okay.
Maybe that can, yeah.
Okay. Hope, I see your hand up, but let me go to Kate and then I'll go to Liano, who will give us the men's perspective before Hope you come in. I hope you don't mind. So Kate, over to you.
For me, what I would ask all of us to do, not only during the 16 days of activism, but beyond, is to really catch biases. As Linda mentioned, we do know that, when a woman has been violated, oftentimes people very innocently will allude to, was she walking alone? Was she walking at night? What was she wearing? I really ask us to really catch ourselves, because this unconscious bias is what further propagates women from not being able to speak up because you're scared of being judged. So it's really for you to interrogate, and also for me to interrogate what I perceive violence is, because then there are also instances where if your spouse or your husband or your boyfriend slaps you, some communities will say that's not violence. So I think it's really for us to be clear what violence is, because I think sometimes we say, oh, it's in the context of it's a relationship, he loves you, or tradition says that if he doesn't hit you, he doesn't love you. I think it's really important for us to interrogate what we perceive, those biases we have, because I think that can be really detrimental. The other thing I think is really important is for us to really build voice and agency. I keep saying, I don't know when a girl learns how to change how she behaves. I ran a session once and I asked young girls, when did you know that you're anxious to walk in the dark? I don't know, but in every community, a girl knows at a certain age she can't do that. And I think it's really important for us to really encourage both boys and girls to have voice and agency when they see something that they can say, because usually victims of sexual-based violence are not made to feel victims. They're made to feel like they're the perpetrators themselves, and yet they walk around like heroes. I think it's really important, as Linda is saying, is to really not sugarcoat this context. And I think a lot of our practices and our cultures say if a man has raped you and he marries you, that completely absolves him from the sin he's committed. I think it's really important for us to question some of those things, even if we have grown up in that socialization process.
Okay. Thank you so much, Kate, for your contribution. So I would want Liano to give us the perspective from the men. What role can men play to ensure that gender-based violence is fought against? I mean, is spoken against. So Liano, if you would want to share with us what role you think men can play in this.
Okay, thank you very much. As a man, I think the problem of most of those things, the majority problem are men. I'm a man. Most of the problem are we. I must say this. in my own point of view. If you look at it, we go from the society where they said man is the head of the house. Therefore, anything say woman must abide to it. And to me, it is totally wrong. That is why I'm even campaigning. I'm even doing this campaign. To me, as a man, it's totally wrong. Men are the foundation, not even the head. Now, the problem is men to know the self-identity of man, the role of man in society, and the role of a woman in society. God never created man to take authority over women or to come and work on women. And this is the mentality men have to put in their head. They have to put in their head too as well. Because in those days, if you look at, let me say, 4 decades back, when our grandfather wanted to get married, they were living together. There were no much violence on girls, not because of love or riches and the rest, but just because of understanding. Everybody respect each and everybody rules. But today, it's lost to the society. It doesn't even know where to start. I'm sorry to say this. Most men will feel offended, but that's the reality. We need to know about it. If you know the importance of a woman, you won't even dare raising a hand on a woman, like Kate just says. To me, men have to change their mentality regarding women. Look, women as if we are equal, because in God's eyes, we are all equals. Then the second thing men need to do is, especially the married one, a dialogue, communicating. The 3 things, the thing come from a home where my father. When I go back to that experience of polygamous home, I look at it. I've never one day seen my father raising his hand or on one of his wife. But today you look at it, one couple, just one wife, one husband, but still they can't live together. Why? Why? Still they can't live together. But to me, it's the mentality of men of nowadays. Men seem to like because they are taught in the society that we are the child, we're in charge, we're the head of the house. Therefore, you have no say. No, men are the foundation. And the biggest problem most men of today have is lack of vision, couple vision, society vision. That's the only thing I have to say here now. Thank you very much.
Thank you to Liano. I see Hope and then Beyondo's hand up, but Hope raised their hands first, so I would want to give the opportunity. Hope, I'll give you 5 minutes. No, 2 minutes. We're almost out of time, so I'll give you just 2 minutes to share with us your opinion on the topic.
All right, all right. Thank you so much. My name is Hope, and I'm coming in from Uganda, and from Raising Teenagers Uganda. I want to thank you all, and I want to use the 2 minutes given to raise just 2 issues. When I raised my hand, you had asked what government can do. And I wanted to speak about the need to embrace guidance and counseling, psychosocial pregnant girls. Whereas Uganda has allowed girls who are pregnant to go back to school, it doesn't just happen. You don't just walk with your pregnancy and enter class and it's okay and it's acceptable. It comes with stigma, depression, and embarrassment. So it's important that governments embrace the importance of psychosocial support to these girls so that they're able to accept who they are, accept the mistake they have made, and then set themselves to start a new journey. That is 1. And 2, you asked about the 16 days of activism and what each individual can do. And starts with us in our homes. If we embrace the need to end domestic violence as individuals, we protect our sisters, we protect our spouses, we protect our neighbors. You know, we be our sisters' watchdogs to protect them. It starts there. We don't need to have a lot of money to say we are speaking against domestic violence, or we are speaking about the end of this kind of campaign. I challenge each one of us that even when the 16 days end, let's all speak for peace, so that we start with where we are, we embrace it as individuals, and then we take it on to our own family members and encourage them to carry the message forward. So that one by one, at the end of the day, we shall make a bundle. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Hope, for your contribution. I think that is absolutely right. We have to be each other's keeper. And so I'll give the floor to Buyondo. Buyondo, you are welcome to the floor with your contribution.
Thank you very much. My name is Ruth. I'm also from Uganda. So in line to what you said, what can individuals do? in these 16 days of activism. One thing we've forgotten, while we have been empowering girls to stand up, speak up, though we haven't yet reached our goal, we forgot to prepare the boys for what is coming for them. Because we can see there is fire now in the female section, but the boys now cannot handle the pressure. So that is one of the contributions to domestic violence lately, that a man who was used to being the one on top, to have the authority in a home, now has a woman who can speak up. They haven't been prepared for it. So I think we also need to talk to the men more and prepare them for a generation of women that can stand up and speak for themselves, so that when it happens, it doesn't come out of shock. Because if you realize, some people, when they have been squeezed by the law, they'll tell you they didn't mean to do it. They didn't mean to hurt the woman eventually. But it is because they weren't prepared for what was coming. So we also need to empower the men to be able to deal with the force that women are coming with as empowered and strong women. Thank you.
That is a very fantastic point that we bring the men into the equation as well, because like you said, women are coming with a lot of fire. Women are realizing their potentials, and they are coming with full force and fire. And this is something men have to match up to. Thank you so much for your contribution. We are running out of time, and so I would like to say thank you to all our speakers for today. And if any one of you is interested in the campaign, wants to join the campaign, you can just send us an email to girlsbacktoschoolcampaign@asuonline.org. girlsbacktoschoolcampaign@asuonline.org. I'll send the email in the chat, so that you can copy the email and then send us any information you would need with regards to the campaign. So I'm sharing the email in the chat box now, so that you can join in sharing your voices to your communities, and then we make impact with the African girl child education. Okay, so that is the email, girls back to school. The 2 is a 2. So girls back to school @asuonline.org. Just a moment. I think so. I'm resending. Okay. Okay, so let me just spell it out, so that if you have anything you can write, you can just write. So it's girls back to school. The 2 is a 2, not a word TO. So girls back to school. Girls, GILSBACK. 2 is a numerical 2. School @asuonline.org. Thank you very much, everyone, for today, and thank you, a special thank you to our speakers as well. We'll communicate more on this topic some other time. Do you have a blessed day, everyone?
Hilda, I'd like to say something.
Yes, please.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak at the summit. Hilda, on behalf of other coordinators, I would like to thank you for the opportunity to speak at the summit and to contribute to the topic of discussion today. We look forward to collectively working together to ensure that girls continue learning during and after COVID-19.
Okay, thank you so much, Linda. We will end the meeting now. Thank you.